hello. Welcome to my channel. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and we are back for another episode of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And this is season. Oh, let me check real quick. Hold on. Season 14 is episode 11, and I believe it's called Mind Your Business. And before we get into it, this was an okay episode. Not really a lot has happened. I ain't gonna hold you, and maybe I'm really spoiled by Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, but I don't know. So far, what are your thoughts on the season? My thoughts on the season so far is just kind of okay. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of waiting for. I'm ready for the ladies to all be back together again. Like, I'm glad that they still are doing the separate things, but it just seems like because they're doing the separate things, not a lot is going on. But at the same time, we are getting more. We're getting to know some of the housewives individually a lot more. Both last episode and this episode, particularly Sutton. So if you're a Sutton Strack fan, you will love these two episodes that occurred. They are slightly heavy because it does deal with, trigger warning, loss of life by the hands of someone doing that to themselves. And so it does deal with that and grief. And maybe that's why I didn't really love this episode, just because for those who don't know, I had something happen a couple weeks ago that re-triggered some of my thoughts on grief. And, grief is one of those things that comes and goes and anything can trigger it. And I literally had something that happened a couple weeks ago and I just was like really triggered. So I guess it's one of those things, like, I kind of dealt with it there. I don't really want to revisit it. So maybe I'm projecting and didn't really love this episode for that reason, but that's just me. But without further ado, let's go ahead and really get into episode. Not a lot happened, but I could kind of just sum it up. So based off of what has happened. And it's not going to be in any particular order. I'm kind of just going to get the ladies' stories who put stories out there out the way. And then that's pretty much going to be the episode. Anyway, let's start with the Dorit of it all. Really, the most that happened when it came to the Dorit situation is that Dorit, Bose, and Erica, they hung out this past episode, and they kind of went. I believe they went out to either lunch or dinner. And another update is. And the reason why I'm pausing like this is just the fact that Dorit is trying to pop, and she's now thinking, okay, things are better now, and doesn't really necessarily isn't sure about making the move of getting the divorce when it comes to PK. And both Erica and Bose are looking at her like, girl, you are dumb. You better go ahead and get this. You better go ahead and handle it. But at the same time, I kind of get where she's coming from too, because, and this is assuming that there's money. And child, we don't know if they got money or not. Allegedly, they don't. So I would think Dorit would try to drag this out and try to wait for the divorce not to happen. Give it the 10 years. But at the same time, PK seems to be playing some games with her and is playing good cop again as if nothing has happened. And I don't know. And the way they're saying it, I kind of agree with it to a certain extent. I think he's trying to butter her up so that he gets the upper hand. And so both of them are just like, girl, if you do not get it together and be aware. And Erica wasn't as harsh about saying it this time around. Bose was the one who really was speaking her speeches like, girl, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to get it together. And then Dorit's like, wait, so is this a game? And she's like, yes, it's a game to him. So you better hurry up and get this done. Like, this is chess, not checkers. And so that's kind of what happened there. And it was kind of like basically what happened with PK, and what was leading her to change her mind is that he's playing nice after sending that awful 7-page letter. And I will say this: when I watch the after show with Bose and Dorit, I guess I'm not sure when the after show was filmed because I feel like it was filmed two times around. I'm very confused by what Dorit's actions are because it's very flip floppy, similar to how she is on the episode, and I don't know. And I'm just curious and wondering, is she really going to move forward with this divorce or not? And I don't know. I don't know. But I'm also at the same time, I'm starting to lose interest in this too. So I don't really know how I feel about it, but maybe we'll get more out of this once the rest of the ladies are back. But just the three of them talking about it, I'm kind of like, okay, we can't just. I feel like we're just kind of being a dead horse, and I feel like Dorit is just like kind of going slightly back to her long-winded ways of going back and forth and flip-flopping around. Either get the divorce or not, like, or at least get prepared for it. And so that's kind of what happens here. So with Erica, the update really that's going on is that um, she is getting her place redecorated through that interior designer Martin Lawrence, and um, for one, we found that out last week that she was able to get it for a decent price. Considering the type of high demand interior designer he is. And for two, what we're seeing this episode is just coming along and things are starting to look a lot nicer and it's coming together very nicely. Now, the only thing I'm kind of confused about, and honestly, I'm always confused about this whenever this happens, is why are we decorating a place that we do not own as far as like painting and all that stuff? I guess for me, I'm not doing any type of remodeling project for something I don't own. That's just me. That's just me. I don't know if you guys feeling differently. Like I'll have some art and stuff like put up, but that's about as far as I'm gonna go. I'm not doing any painting or anything like that because I feel like that's a little excessive for something I don't own. But that's just me. But that's pretty much what's happening with Erica. She does seem like she's in a much better, more positive headspace, and her redecorating her home seems like it means way more to her than we really have been letting on. And that's pretty much her whole entire storyline is like she's redecorating her home. She finally starting to feel like herself again after everything that's happened when it comes to her and her estranged husband. And so this is what we're seeing now. Um, but yeah, that's kind of all that's going on with Erica. So now let's just move on to Bose and then we'll get over to Augusta, Georgia and kind of wrap that all up. So pardon me. Bose is talking to the ladies. Well, Bose, we have a couple scenes with Bose. Bose talks to both Dorit and Erica about what's going on with her relationship with Keely, but then we also do see her talk to her daughter about about her relationship with Keely. And I forget which order it happens, but basically, I believe she talks to her daughter first, and then she ends up talking to Erica and Dorit about it. So when it comes to like talking to her daughter, she's like saying, "Hey, we are wanting to possibly have a child. How do you feel about that?" And I mean, I feel like a lot of people think that this is really, really quick for her to do all this, but if you're someone of a certain age, you don't waste time when it comes to dating. That's just what it is. Like, and I found at least last year when I dated someone last year briefly, I found that that was a major age gap of a problem for me personally. I was dating someone who was younger than me and they did not understand my questions. They thought I was trying to move speed ahead and really looking like I really want to be with them, this, that, and this, and that. And it honestly wasn't that. It's more or less like, look, I'm a person of a certain age. I'm going to need to ask the questions, particularly when it comes to children. When you are someone who's in your late 30s and up as a woman, these are questions that need to be asked. And in Bo's case, she's in her mid to late 40s. Like, the baby making shop is starting to close. It is it's grand opening, grand closing. It is about to close. So if having a child or the person you're dealing with, if having a child is like essential to them being with someone and they want to have it the natural old fashioned way, we need to have that conversation like first date. I know that probably seems crazy, but it's not crazy because in my case, and probably in like, and again, in Bose's case, the shop is closing. So like, if you want that, it needs to either happen in a certain timeline. And what are the conditions with that timeline? What is this? What is that? And I feel like one of the people who I was dating in my past last year, to be exact, was not ready for all that. They thought that meant I wanted to be with them, date them, and all this other stuff. It's like, no, I'm just asking these questions out of interest because when you're at a certain age, in your late 30s to 40s and up, you're just not trying to waste people's time. And that's all it is. It's like, look, I don't want my time wasted. I don't want to waste anyone else's time either. So if X, Y, and Z is a deal breaker for you, let's not move forward and let's just like have fun or whatever. That's just kind of like how I give it up. Like, I feel like that is very mature. That is what grown people do. And that's literally what we're seeing with Bose. And I'll mention later on how Erica thought that was weird, but I actually agree with Bose when it comes to this about asking these type of questions because those things, love will come or it may not come. But when the shop is closed to have making a baby, the shop is closed. Like there's no, one of them can happen or like one of them can happen with time. The other one, the time is running out. So like, let's make it make sense. But anyway, so she talks to her daughter, and to Bose's surprise, her daughter is okay with the idea of her having a child, and also is okay and is liking her man Keely, and her daughter seemed like she was slightly confused. She's like, "Is this your man or is this your friend?" And and I get it because she's younger, and so she's just kind of like, I kind of wasn't sure if y'all were serious or not. And Bose is like, well, he came all the way here to Ghana. So we find out that when her daughter and her were in Ghana, Keely flew out to Ghana to surprise him and see them. And at the time they were just barely dating or they were kind of just seeing each other barely. And so Bose had to basically up and tell her daughter, like, yeah, my friend is coming. So it does seem like they are moving fast, but so I do take that back. It does seem like they're moving fast, but not for the baby making questions. Is more or less that. I feel like that was fast and kind of like, whoa, okay, you're gonna fly across the world to just like, surprise someone. But hey, if you got like that, you got like that, I guess. And I'm not judging because again, if you have it like that, you got like that. And apparently he has it like that. So that's kind of what happens there. Her talking to her daughter, and her daughter's okay with Keely and her moving forward. And her daughter's main reason behind her being okay with her having a child is she's like, I don't want you to have to deal with the empty nest thing if you don't have to deal with it. And I thought that was just so cute and so sweet. So that's kind of what happened here when it came to her daughter. Later on, though, Bose does talk to Erica and Dorit, and she also drops another bomb that she's had all this talk about having the babies, the timeline of it all, but they have not said I love you to each other, not yet. And both of them are shocked and kind of surprised by this, but again, I have similar thoughts to Bose. I'm not, because certain things that are deal breakers that are like not about wasting someone's time, you need to have those talks before love even comes into the picture, in my opinion. I don't think you should be having talks about how you feel about children and things like that before you're in love with someone. I think you need to have that talk earlier on so that you're not in a situation where it's like, oh, I want to have kids. Well, wait, I'm done over here. Like, you don't want that. That's like the worst. That would be the worst type of circumstance. And so I agree with Bose on her approach with that. I don't see anything wrong with that. The other thing that was mentioned that was kind of interesting is Dorit's approach to get that conversation going. Dorit's approach was way wrong, but I'm not that surprised because Dorit has been out of the dating game for some time, so she would not be the right audience to kind of help you out with that. And Erica was like, "Oh, no, 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 no," and vetoed it, which is great. And I think they all came up with a conclusion, and they were talking about even in the after show that she needs to wait for him to say it. And that is something that I've learned the older I've gotten, is that you do not say it first. Like, I'm never in my life going to say like my feelings about someone first ever again. I'm not doing it. I am not doing it. It has never worked out for me to do it that way. So yeah, no, 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 no. I'm gonna need my partner, whoever I end up being with, to be assertive and say their feelings first. And that's that on that. That might come off immature. That's an unpopular opinion, but you know, I'm assertive when it comes to a lot of things, and that's one of those things that I've learned. Assertiveness is not always good. And that's one of those cases where it's like, you know, I'm gonna take the back seat in that and wait for the next person to say that to me first before I say it back. Because the way I see it is my actions are already telling you I have feelings for you. And so therefore you could say it back. And also I found out, as I'm talking, I'm realizing that this episode's theme was really about love and that word and saying it out loud and affirmation of it. The basically words of affirmation. I feel like that was the theme of this episode. But anyway, that's kind of what happened here when it came to the girls. At least in the Beverly Hills side of the house. So now let's go over to Augusta, Georgia. So with when it comes to when it comes to Sutton, Garcelle, and Kyle, we do have it where, by the way, Avi was up in this episode, which I love, and that was great. But then also the other thing that we had here that happened this episode was that Garcelle did decide she's going to go ahead and talk to Reba about how Sutton feels about things. And Reba's response to it about mind your business. Yeah. Now, I have questions. Garcelle, I'm speaking directly to you. After your brief interaction you already had with Reba, what made you think this was a good idea? Number one. Number two, whether you and Son's mom got along or not, I will say this. I know you're friends with her. I would not be okay with someone doing that. Like, in my personal, maybe, I mean, clearly Son was okay with it. Because, she feels like she doesn't really have that kind of voice here and there. But at the same time, I just, there's a lot more to the story that we find out in this episode, especially to why them two have the relationship that they have. And so it really, honestly, Reba was right. Her delivery was horrible, but Reba's right. It really was not Garcelle's place to kind of insert herself into their business. Just saying. So, but basically how this ends with Garcelle and Reba talking, they do have a little bit of an understanding. And Reba did soften up a little bit talking to Garcelle. Now, it did seem like they kind of got cut off abruptly because this conversation was happening all before breakfast the next day. And so the food was ready and they kind of got cut off. So they didn't really get to finish talking. Um, now, has my opinion changed of Reba and how I think she treats in the way she treats Garcelle? No, it has not. Um, and the reason why I would say it hasn't is because Reba is definitely that type of woman who she comes from a certain time frame. She even alluded to it later on in the episode that she was raised differently, robbed differently. These are the things. And certain things, if not most things, are not changing over there for her. It's just not going to. And so I'm pretty sure when Garcelle did this, it was actually extra interesting. And I am curious to wonder, would the reception have been different if it was Kyle? And I feel like it kind of would have been. But I don't think Kyle's approach would have been as blunt as Garcelle. I think Kyle would have like kind of went more on the softer area of it. And honestly, to be honest, I kind of wish Kyle would have been the one who did it. Because of how Kyle had her relationship with her mom. We know Kyle's relationship with her mom, Big Kathy, was not the greatest. So, I think there would have been even more relatability if Kyle would have been the one who had this attempt to have this conversation with Reba versus Garcelle. Now, Garcelle did still have some relatability when it came to, you know, when it came to like Reba and her dynamic with how her mom was and stuff like that. But it just wasn't the same because it seemed like towards the end of the conversation, it was Garcelle. She went from trying to find a way to relate to Reba to like actually now being on the couch because Reba is retired therapist. And Reba, even to a certain extreme, even joked about, she's like, okay, that'll be this much money. Now, I forgot what the dollar amount that she said, but she was like, okay, I'm done with the session. It'll be this much money. And so that was, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but that's kind of what ended. That's kind of how that ended. And Kyle kind of was just barely in. She was here in the episode, but like I feel like she was just there as a supporting cast member. And this is kind of what gets me when it comes to Kyle. Kyle wants to be that girl when it comes to this show so badly. But even when she has opportunities to be that girl and do things to make herself that girl even more, she doesn't do it. Like she just isn't the main girl, even though she tries to be the main girl. She's now only the main girl by default because she's been on the show the longest. That's literally it. I feel like she hasn't really earned her keeps to be the main girl for real, to be honest with you, when it comes to Kyle. So basically, we find out though later on at the breakfast that Sutton planned for them and ideally it would have been all of them to go to their old family house and kind of just get some closure. I mean, that's really what Sutton was trying to do. She wanted to get closure on her dad passing away and the way that happened. And oh my God. Mm, mm. For those who are wondering, I'm about to change the subject a little bit briefly. There's a reason why I'm not filming this particular review I'm doing. So my grief that I had that I go on and out off of is very similar circumstances. I have a cousin who was like a sister to me who passed away very similar to Sutton's son's dad. So, and this was literally what I was struggling with 2 weeks ago. And so, like, just talking about it, just talking about others who, anytime there's a conversation of how someone have lost their lives via self-inflicted, I have a tough time with it. I really do have a tough time with it, especially considering the fact that what happened last week, a couple weeks ago. But anyway, let me try to get through this because I'm trying not to break down and cry. Oh, jeez. But basically, Sutton is trying to get. She wants to go to her old family's house to go to basically get some closure. Now they have new owners there, and so that is what the ladies are gonna do. Reba doesn't want to go there. She's like, I'm not going there. I'm good. I don't need to go there. And yeah. And I could see why. Because again, people deal with grief very differently. And so I can see why. And this is kind of why, back to the original thing that I mentioned about Garcelle butting in and, like, inserting herself in their business. That's why I don't think that was her place to do, because it's not just about Sutton and her mom's dynamic and that's it. There's grief involved in this. And, it's Reba who lost her spouse, but leading up to the time of his passing, it may not have been the prettiest, considering the fact that he was self-medicating and whatnot. And then we have Sutton, who was a daughter who didn't really have to deal with that responsibility aspect of it, and she was a daddy's girl. So her view of it is going to be very different than Reba. And that's the part that I think is tricky. It's actually extremely tricky. Okay, so the ladies do end up going to the house, and then this is where we learn more about Sutton and her relationship, or her relationship she had with her dad. And this is one of the pieces that she needs in order to get her closure. And she gave the Garcelle and Kyle a tour. Prior to her giving them the tour, when they arrived at the place, she almost did want to turn around and not go in there, because she got choked up like immediately. But the owners were nice enough to let them, the new owners of the house were nice enough to let them go in there. And it was pretty much all pleasant for the most part, up until they got to the room that, the last room that Sutton saw her dad alive. And, oh God, I get it. I get it. I get it. That is one of those things that's really, really a tough thing. And she went, this is the most vulnerable, side note, that we have seen Sutton. And I was just so proud of her for just sharing it and sharing the thoughts behind that, because you do have those feelings once that happens. Could you have done something differently? I have those thoughts when it comes to my cousin. Like, I always think, man, I should have did more. Even though I was the younger cousin, I'm just like, still, I just kind of wish I would have been able to do more. It's just one of those things that's really, really difficult. And I do like, though, that both Garcelle and Kyle were giving Sutton a soft landing. This is probably one of the first times that Kyle did not get on my nerves at all this episode. Kyle did appear to really give Sutton a soft landing. And even the after show, we understand now that why Kyle kind of sees Sutton as like a sister. Because I think there is more of an understanding there than Kyle lets up. And she says she does excuse, a lot of Sutton's erratic behaviors here and there, especially now. And I agree, with watching this episode, because the episode before we understood it, this episode, if you don't understand why Sutton acts the way she acts after watching these last two episodes, I don't know what to tell you, because I mean it's pretty obvious why she acts the way she acts. Um, and her being a daddy's girl, and one thing that Garcelle kind of mentioned that I find interesting that I didn't even look at that way is that there might be some resentment to a certain degree from the mom that she was a daddy's girl. And so there might have been some closeness. So Sam was clearly close with her dad and maybe saw the side of, and maybe there's just a little bit there. I wouldn't say resentment. I would just say there's something there to that. Because I'm not sure if Garcelle's right when she says that either. If anything, I would highly recommend after watching this episode to watch the after show. I think Jen Fertilli, when it came to her analyzing this whole entire episode, nail on the head. Like, she was able to break it down in ways that made the most sense to me. When it came to like how sudden, because she's just thinking about her losing her dad, which that makes sense. I think she herself is having a tough time reconciling, which, I don't know how you would do it. It takes a lot to be able to do that. Is there might have been way more darker stuff that was happening there behind the scenes that she didn't see because she was a child, and her mom was probably protecting her of that, and also maybe helped keep the front of like her dad being the hero. And because to me it seems like reba was probably doing a lot of cleaning up behind her husband, um to keep that family unit. Like, it is very clear to me that reba was the rock, to the point where her emotions are not really there, and this is a side effect of that. Because I'm not sure, because the other thing that they didn't really go into was her mom like this, as far as like being kind of cold in the way she is now? Was she like that prior to the dad, passing away? And also, too, was the dad just always sick before this happened? Like, there's a lot of things that I feel like we don't have answers to really come up with a conclusion. But it's just a lot. It was a lot, and it's a lot of things to kind of look after. And but I do appreciate this episode. So even though this was not the most exciting episode, it was just a heavy episode to me. Mainly because, again, I have personal feelings, similar situation that I literally just kind of resolved with myself that was not related to this episode. But anyway, so they get back, and Sutton finally decides to be brave and talk to her mom. Prior to that, though, she was going to make the crab cakes that her dad used to make. And so then they go and talk, and it really made sense why Reba's the way she is. And in the after show, I feel like you need to watch this again in conjunction with the after show, because her mom is not a traditional mom. Her mom is a career woman and always was a career woman. So when Sutton basically became a kept woman and, was married a Christian, Sutton's mom didn't really want that for her. And so she kind of looked at her like she was crazy. She's like, why are you doing it that way? Even though now she gets the benefits of her doing that, but she raised Sutton to be like her, but she kind of did the opposite. So Sutton is essentially the antithesis of Reba. And so that's why they kind of just do not have an understanding of each other. Like, Sutton, both of them are awkward. Both of them are kind of overly blunt to the point of being rude. But Sutton is unintentional, and Reba, she don't care. She doesn't care if it's intentional or not. She's just gonna say what she says. And Reba does break down how she's like, look, I come from a different time. I come from a time where we're not saying I love you so flippantly. And Son's like, but like you saying I love you to me would not be flippantly because I'm your daughter. She didn't say it like that, and I just wish Son had better words to say that. But if she would just, I feel like a lot of it is Sudden is not a great communicator. And if Sudden was a better communicator, I feel like certain points would be made and it would, maybe they could get to an understanding. But towards the end of the episode, it seems like they did come to an understanding. And the mom, in her own way, was like, okay, I get it. I get that you need words of affirmation. It just kind of, I don't know. What I don't understand, and I know there's grief and all this other stuff involved, and I kind of just want you guys to kind of pop off in the comments when it comes to this a little bit. How is she a therapist and doesn't understand that her daughter needs that? I don't understand how she's not seeing it. I guess I'm confused. And maybe because I just feel like a mother-daughter really, like my parents say I love you to me all the time. And maybe that's where maybe this is where I'm confused at. Because I come from a family where we do that. We do that all the time. Like that is like not a flippant thing. Like saying I like, oh girl, I love you, like a friend, that's, or someone that you just met, oh my gosh, I love you. Yes, that's flippant. But like your family saying that to you, I don't see that as ever being a flippant thing. And they talked about this a little bit more in depth when it came to the after show. And even Jennifer Teeley kind of shed some light on this about how her ex-husband didn't really start saying it to her until like he was like dying. And then he finally starts saying it to her. But the actions were showing that he loves. And that's how rhobh is. Rhobh's an actions kind of person. Like, look, my actions are telling you that I care and how I love you. That should be enough. And I guess for me, maybe I have a little bit of the words of affirmation when it comes to me. No, actions are not enough. I'm going to need you to say it too. I'm going to need you to say it with your chest. I'm going to need you to scream to the mountaintop. I'm going to need you to do all the things. I'm going to need the actions and the words together. Because actions without words don't mean nothing, and words without actions don't mean anything. Like it needs to be together as a collaboration. It needs to be peanut butter and jelly, together. But yeah, so long story less long, towards the end of the episode, as they're talking, the rhobh and Son are talking, we see that Kyle and Garcelle and Abby are eavesdropping the whole entire time. And then afterwards, Son goes to call them, and then they have to like pretend scatter, even though they were literally right there the whole entire time. But I did appreciate that they checked up on her, make sure she was good. And Son made the nice dinner. And then we find out, though, that the mom is going to go to the event that Son's putting together, and which, means a lot to Sudden. And so that was the other olive branch that kind of came out of this. And it just seems like at the very end, they came to the understanding that they're going to both try to do better. And I think to a certain degree, maybe Garcelle did get through to rhobh a little bit, but maybe not. I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are when it comes to the episode. But that pretty much was the episode. It was definitely a Sudden-heavy episode. Kathy Hilton did make a brief appearance in the episode via FaceTime talking to Kyle. Kyle kind of gave her Kathy an update as far as like Mauricio taking Portia, to Europe. She's gonna do like the tourist stuff while Mo enjoys being a single man, basically. And you could tell when Kathy was talking to Kyle about this, Kathy is censoring herself so badly when it comes to the Mo situation, because Mo and Kathy, how Kathy and Rick do not see it from Mo. So, but anyway, that was kind of the other thing that happened. I forgot to mention that, but that does conclude the episode. I'm kind of proud of myself. I got through it without crying. I almost did, though. I almost did, but Another great episode. I am ready for the ladies to be back together and get into the things. It looks like previews for next episode looks like Dorit and Bose are gonna bump heads with Garcelle, Kyle, and Sutton. Yeah, so it looks like it's gonna be good, and Erica's just gonna be like, kind of just like there. But that does conclude the episode, and the review. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you get anything out of the content. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and I will see you next time. Bye.